This is about situations where you might not want AI crawlers crawling your stuff, crawling your website, and then how to actually implement that, how to stop them from crawling your content and crawling other stuff on your website. Yesterday, on yesterday's episode of the podcast, I gave an in-depth breakdown of how these AI crawlers, how these AI bots work, the insane inefficiencies with them, and how to actually be included with AI bots, with ChatGPT, with Gemini, with Claude. That's what yesterday's episode 536, the insane inefficiencies of AI crawlers, how to get shown on ChatGPT. That's what yesterday's episode is about. And today is the times when you don't want these AI crawlers to access your stuff and then how to implement it. The first one is when you have a lot of junk on your site. This could mean thin content that just isn't really useful. It could be various resources, CSS resources, JavaScript resources. If you have something on your site that doesn't really add value, you might want to maximize your crawl budget, reduce server load, and block AI crawlers from accessing this stuff. So this is my own site. I have 15% of my site is HTML. It's normal web pages, posts, pages, and I want AI crawlers crawling that stuff. I have 67% is images because I have a photos page that has a lot of stuff on it, edwardsturm.com/photos. I want that too because sometimes AI bots show photos in their results. So I'm fine with that too. And it would be cool if AI bots learn from my photos and can reproduce me. And if anyone can reproduce me, I think that's fun. Even though I could end up in some risky scenarios that people make, I still think it's funny. But then I have 15% of my site is taken up by CSS and 1.67% is taken up by JavaScript. And it's the CSS that's more serious, but I'm actually not going to block AI crawlers from crawling my CSS resources. I thought about it because here's the thing, it's crazy. ChatGPT spends 34% of its fetches on 404 pages. These are pages that don't even exist. It spends an additional 14% on fetches following redirects. And Claude also spends 34% of its fetches on 404 pages. Google, in comparison, is way less. Way less. 8% on 404 pages and 1.5% on redirects. The reason, though, I'm going to allow these AI crawlers to crawl my 15% of CSS files is because these CSS files might help ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude understand the layout, the visibility, and how my content is presented. So, for example, the CSS would determine whether text on my site is hidden or not, or what elements are used to emphasize certain text or emphasize certain images or graphs. So because my content uses CSS for organization and structure, blocking my CSS resources could lead to misinterpretation or incomplete crawling of my stuff. And it's only 15% as well. That's not that much. My advice here is if your non-HTML and non-image content far outweighs your other stuff, then it's worth looking into it. I crawled my site, edwardsturm.com, using Screaming Frog. Screaming Frog, super easy, and you can crawl up to 500 URLs with the free tier of Screaming Frog. For a lot of small sites, that's enough. And then with a paid tier, you can crawl as many sites as you want, and you can crawl everything on a site. And I have the paid tier because I use it a lot, and it's just such a great tool, especially for doing website audits. So I use Screaming Frog to look through all of the URLs on my site and crawl it and get this overview of the comparison of HTML to JavaScript to CSS to images. Another reason that you might not want AI crawlers crawling your stuff, maybe you are doing some against the rules SEO and you are using AI written text in order to rank on Google or on Bing. This is a bad practice. It heightens your chance of penalization. Earlier in 2024, Google did something crazy and not just only penalized the sites that were relying on AI generated text, but some people reported Google penalizing every property linked to that Google Search Console that was managing these AI content heavy sites. The thing about using hundreds or thousands of pages of AI written text is that if you're doing that, there's a good chance it's not human reviewed. If it's human reviewed, it's okay. But it's probably not human reviewed if you are making these pages in bulk to rank on Google. And if it's not human reviewed, then there's a good chance it's going to be wrong. Google doesn't want to recommend wrong stuff, and AI systems also don't want to learn from unchecked AI written content. This heightens the chance of them putting out bad output. And here's the thing, ChatGPT and Gemini, they learn from Bing and Google Search Console, in addition to lots of other places. Gemini has its own bot called Google Extended. It doesn't just use Googlebot, it uses Google Extended too. ChatGPT uses GPTBot, but it also uses Bing data. And in the future, it could detect if what it is learning off of is written by AI. A lot of these pages and posts that are written by AI are pretty easily detectable as AI written content. And so in the future, it could detect that this is AI written content and then relay that information back to Bing or back to Google Search Console. And that could increase your chance of a penalization. In addition to also just having your entire site blocked from ChatGPT or from other AI crawlers. So maybe you would have a bunch of sales pages on your site. Now these pages are blocked too, because it just does a blanket ban of your site. Now, with the risk of a penalization hitting other properties on your Google Search Console or your Bing Webmaster Tools, if you are in a separate account that is not linked to any other properties, it's not really as risky. But if there are other properties linked to it, it is still risky. And if your site is selling something, well, having this happen, getting penalized within ChatGPT or within Claude or Gemini or whatever, you might not just have the AI written content that's banned, you might have your entire site that is suppressed, demoted, or just blocked altogether. So that's another reason that you wouldn't want AI crawlers crawling your stuff. Reason number 3, maybe you have paid studies. You spend a lot of money doing these extensive studies and you sell them, or you have paid news, or you have user-generated content that should be private to the users, or maybe you have your own private content, or you write poetry, you're an artist, or you're just doing writing and you have stories, or you're writing in a specific style and you don't want the AI to be able to reproduce your style. These are all very valid reasons that you might not want your content crawled. The writing for stories, it could be useful because then people could query these AI bots like ChatGPT and learn about your story. But then again, it's also likely that ChatGPT could get it wrong. If it's a lot of text in the story, these systems are still relatively new. And if it's a lot of text, we've all seen ChatGPT or Gemini get things wrong so many times. So you might be worried that these bots are going to take what you said out of context, just give the wrong information. Or you have paid stuff on your site, private stuff on your site. So those are all other reasons to block these AI crawlers from crawling your stuff. These crawlers could increase your server load. This is from a post on Reddit, and someone said weekly stats for one website. This is from Claude. Requests, 2.1 million requests for 1 week. Claude made 2.1 million requests for 1 week. The person said, ban this crap. Somebody else said, Claudebot spent 4 days working its way through my 23-year-old PHP BB forum looking for a new page every second before I noticed. Really something else. So you might want to reduce your server load. That's another reason to block these AI crawlers. Perhaps also you're worried about regulatory compliance. I just talked about privacy. Regulatory compliance is another one. Then there's competition. Owners might worry that their content could give competitors an advantage if it's incorporated into an AI model. Lots of different services and companies are using the data that ChatGPT has and that ChatGPT uses, so you might not want it covering your stuff. Those are all very valid reasons that you might want these AI crawlers to not crawl your site. So how do you actually block them? It's really simple. So every site has a robots.txt file. You can see mine, edwardsturm.com/robots.txt. This is a file that tells robots how to handle your website, what to access, what they can't access, what you don't want them to follow, what you don't want them to see. And it's really simple. So here's an example for GPTBot. Maybe you just don't want ChatGPT learning from anything on your site. Now, I think that might not be a good practice because a lot of people have sales pages. They have pages that are made to sell stuff, and you want them to see this stuff. You want them to see your sales pages so that they can recommend you. But maybe you just want to block your entire site. So you would say user agent So now you're specifying the AI crawler, and you would say GPT bot. And then on the next line, you would say disallow, and you would just do /. And that would block everything on your site, but you can block specific subfolders. You can block specific pages. You can block anything that you want. And it's really easy. The way to do it is really easy. Claude uses ClaudeBot. Gemini uses Google-Extended. So that's how you block these AI crawlers. Really, really simple. That's how you do it. Now, the caveat, the thing with this is that these systems may ignore your block requests. Google also may still use Googlebot information as they become more mature, but they will probably, all of these bots will probably obey robots.txt rules more in the future. But I've also seen reports that they've just ignored the robots.txt rules. Some are better at it than others. I think it's just a measure of these AI crawlers are improving over time. They're still relatively new, but in the future, they will be a lot better at obeying robots.txt rules. So if you want to block these AI crawlers from learning from your stuff, sharing your stuff, maybe you're worried about misinformation or any of the stuff that I talked about, privacy, any of these things, or server load. If you want to block these AI crawlers, that is how you do it. The last thing that I will leave you with, and I just said this, but I want to stress, don't block these AI crawlers from accessing your sales pages or your bottom of funnel pages, pages that are made to sell people, because you want AI bots learning about your product and why it should be recommending your product to people who are asking it for bottom of funnel queries, who need product recommendations, for example. Those are absolute situations where you really should not block these AI crawlers. But now you know that is how you block the AI crawlers, and these are the situations where you would want to do it, where you might want to consider it. And that is all for episode 537 of my daily digital marketing podcast, The Edward Show. 537 days in a row. Got some great content behind us and some great content ahead of us. Thank you so much for watching. If you're watching on YouTube, thank you so much for listening. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, I will talk to you again tomorrow. Bye now.